Hello and welcome back to the Double One Radio Gamescast. As always, I'm your host Ryan, and I'm joined today by my lovely cohort of co-hosts, Alex,
RAR XD, my fellow gamers.
Wyatt,
I want to leave now.
and Brett.
God almighty.
All right. Okay, simmer down.
And I'm taking Brett with me.
We have some news to talk about this week. This is going to be a lighter episode. It's episode 94. We're making our way towards 100.
Oh.
But there's been some news this week. There's some things for us to actually talk about, and we've all been playing some games. And we're going to talk about those games. Makes sense? Everyone
Yeehaw!
in with the times?
Yeah, I could get down with that.
All right, great.
That's great because you're contractually obligated.
I want to start us off at a high note. All right, this is going to be the game for this episode. Now, don't tell me if you already know the number, because it is on headlines, in case you did see it. But for those who have not already seen this number, I want your best guess for the amount of money that AGDQ, Awesome Games Done Quick, raised for charity this past week.
Oh, I do not know this.
I'll give you a hint. It is above the normal range. So aim high.
I don't even know what the normal range is.
Exactly.
Oh God.
That does not help us, Ryan. Unfortunately,
I'm gonna say a couple million.
What do I say?
Big number. Maybe
Big
or may
number.
not be big enough.
Raising a big number there.
I'm gonna take your couple million, and I'm gonna raise you to 5 million.
No, you guys are going very large numbers.
I was going to be very generous, and I was gonna hopefully say, after my only few Kickstarters that I've seen, I was going to say 30 million.
You're insane.
Oh my God.
Are you looking at the
Alex.
Kickstarter? I just pulled a reference out of my butt. Did you
AGDQ
like that?
has raised a couple million. They raised $3,416,729 for charity.
Damn.
It was only a zero off.
Yeah.
I was the closest.
Sure.
Because that's how math works.
That's how math works. Look, this is a lot of money for charity.
Yeah.
$30 million for charity is unheard of. I just want you to know that, Alex. That is an unheard of number.
Do I look like I'm a guy who knows anything about finance? I say as we do an episode
outside of corporate donations. All right, so AGDQ very successful this year. I guess people being home, put on AGDQ while you're doing work or whatnot, have it in the background, and that I think means that people had maybe some more people were willing to shell out this year, which is great. Always love to see AGDQ succeeding. Now, another monetary question. Take-Two acquired a company this week. They acquired Zynga, the mobile games company.
I thought you said 10 cent at first. I was getting ready to cry.
Take-Two.
Okay.
To be honest, I don't know how you could make Zynga's monetization schemes much more aggressive.
I mean, you're combining the brain power of Take-Two and Zynga, so I can only imagine what kind of concoction.
I'm not going to make you guess this number because it's very large. $12.7 billion.
You said billion? Did you just say billion?
I said $1 billion.
Why are people allowed to have this much money?
Now, if only the two contexts for that amount of money were switched, we would be living in a much better place.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So Zynga is one of the most successful game companies ever. They only do mobile games, as far as I'm aware. Maybe some web games. But they're the company, if you think of your average mobile game, they probably had some hand, either them or King, had some hand in releasing it, usually.
Didn't they do Farmville?
I believe so. It's a long time ago, but I think they are that company. I think Zynga might have published one of them, but I could be wrong there. I don't want to say anything that is directly incorrect. So.
Oh, they did Words with Friends.
Yeah, Words with Friends. Actually, quite a fun game. You know, good for your phone.
I mean, it's basically just Scrabble.
It's Scrabble, you know, but it's Scrabble that you can play with your grandmother. So
they also did Zynga Poker, which just feels disgustingly appropriate.
Of course. All right, moving past our monetary things. You all remember that Kirby game that looked super cool at the
3D
event a while back? Yeah, Kirby in the Forgotten Land.
Kirby of the Wild.
Kirby with gun.
Kirby
with gun.
Kirby with gun. So that game has a release date now, March 25th.
Ooh. Oh,
nice.
wow.
Much sooner than I expected, at least.
You gotta love Nintendo's like quick announce.
It's weird because like Breath of the Wild 2 has a very long period. I mean, not even that long. It's been like a year, but comparatively to what Nintendo's been doing with their other franchises, yeah, I think Zelda is the only one that's really getting these long-term releases, mostly because people just want to know there's another one in the works. But I'm excited to see this Kirby game. It is also, we know, the install size for the Switch is going to be 5.8 gigabytes, which is a neat little factoid. That might seem small, but Super Mario Odyssey was smaller than that.
Wow.
Oh, I don't know what black magic Nintendo is doing to get these sizes so small, but they're doing it, and it's working.
They should
just goes to show you.
They should make sure that the Pokemon team gets some of that, because clearly they're using a different ancient tome and it's not working so good.
Not working so well.
Just goes to show you, Mario's hat swap technique is much less powerful than Kirby's suck.
Man, I don't know how to respond to that. So,
and moving on.
It's a good segue.
I believe even more now.
I've talked about the Hitman games a lot on this podcast. Every now and then mention them as great examples of stealth action. They're all coming to Game Pass. Yeah, all of them. The entire trilogy. Ooh. PC and console, January 20th. So,
damn.
You want an interest in playing these games? Absolutely download the Hitman trilogy when that comes out and play them, because they are excellent stealth action
Time for me to live out my dream of being bald.
And some of the best like sandbox games you can get. Very, very fun. All right. So, we had two major port releases on PC this past week. Monster Hunter Rise and God of War. Now, in our second game of the night, what I want you two to do is tell me which one had a larger concurrent player number on release day.
Oh.
I
have a feeling the reason you're pointing this out is because it's Monster Hunter.
I can tell you I would do this either way.
I'm gonna say Monster Hunter because I've been in what was the day that it was released?
Monster Hunter was released I think on Thursday.
Oh, yeah.
Wednesday. It was Wednesday afternoon.
Maybe. Then it was like the day after it was released. Everyone I was in a voice call with, and that was 13 people except for me, were all playing Monster Hunter. So I'm going to say Monster Hunter.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I usually need to rep for my boy. Not Kratos, boy. But I think probably Monster Hunter had more concurrent players, to be honest.
Well, I'm not going to hold you in suspense. You two are correct. Monster Hunter doubled the player number.
Me too. God.
Brett, you don't count.
Your vote doesn't count.
No,
I was right first. I was the first one to be correct.
Yes, but were you right the loudest, Brett?
Were you right the most? No. So,
Ryan, we're that meme where like Arnold Schwarzenegger and the other guy like clasp hands in Predator. That was like your vote doesn't matter.
So Monster Hunter Rise released to 100,000 players at launch on launch day. Big number for Monster Hunter. World did do higher, but World is the highest concurrent number that Capcom has ever had on PC, and Rise was the second highest. So these games are both doing exceedingly well. God of War is doing a solid 50K, which is still very good. I don't know what I think the reasoning behind this, I feel like more people that play Monster Hunter are willing to buy it again. because of the fact that it's a game that they want to play with their friends, right? So it's more because that's what I did. 100%.
Also, you get to see it. Also, you get to see it at a higher resolution now.
Yeah, it does look very good on PC. That 120 frames, amazing.
That's the other thing is that you're getting 2 games that come from 2 different platforms, and I feel like with Monster Hunter on PC, you can see the differences between that and Switch way more than the difference between.
It's a much more noticeable upgrade.
Oh, 100%.
Especially if you have a PS5 and already own God of War.
You can no longer count the amount of polygons.
Which there aren't a lot of people that own a PS5 right now. But I mean, like the quality jump, I feel like even if you're playing on like PS4 to like PC isn't as nearly as noticeable as like Switch to PC. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so those games have both had successful launches. Moving on, Dying Light, franchise that at least Wyatt and I have played a good deal of time into the first game.
It would be Brett's. He hasn't tried it yet, but I already know it would be Brett's favorite video game ever made. An open world zombie game, just with crafting elements,
with survival and crafting elements.
I choose to say nothing.
All right, Dying Light 2 coming out very soon has committed to 5 years of post-launch support. I'd say this is surprising, but the original Dying Light got an update this year or last year now. So.
Well, they also claimed recently that there's 500 hours worth of content in it.
Oh, this is the second half of this, Wyatt. We're not done with this. We talked about the 500 hours thing last week. Now, we've had more confirmation from the people behind the tweet that said that. And the confirmation now is that the main story plus a few extras should take 20 to 30 hours. Much more reasonable number, in line with the first game. That's what you expect, right? Yeah. What they should have led with. They said a pretty thorough playthrough that completes pretty much all the like major side content maybe will possibly run you somewhere between 50 and 100 hours, depending on how fast you are and what difficulty.
What is the 500 about?
The 500 is apparently the number if you do literally everything in the game. Collect every item, do everything you can possibly do. So
okay.
Like, yeah, so the thing that like 4 people
useless number. Useless number.
Why has anyone ever judged a game by that metric?
Because big number must mean better.
No. The important thing is people have been making a bunch of jokes. I don't know if anyone else saw Devolver's reply, but Devolver sent out a tweet that Shadow Warrior 3 would take 500 hours to complete 80 times.
Awesome.
Which was
classic
very funny. And then in the comments, the developers Techland for Dying Light 2 replied with that classic furtive glance meme. So they're aware that they are a joke now, and they get it. Cute. It was bad decision. Not even that bad of a decision. Just a weird marketing thing that like they should have probably known that wasn't gonna go over super well.
Yeah.
80 times.
Because when I think of a game saying 500 hours, I don't think of like, oh, Monster Hunter, I could play 500 hours of that. I think worst case scenario, Shadow of War when it came out, and you had like the 500-hour in game that was absolutely awful.
I'm sorry, what?
when
I was just about to go play this game.
Oh, it's great now. It's great now.
Okay.
But it released and had like this horrific end game where you couldn't see the final ending until you had done like a ton of these siege missions that you had to do over and over, and there was like no story in between, so it was rough.
The 500 hours to me is dedicated to like MMOs or people who play Halo Infinite multiplayer for entirely way too long.
Yeah, MMOs are multiplayer games.
Not that I'm pointing out anyone specifically, but you know.
For sure.
You say it like you're bragging. No, it's not something to brag about.
You shouldn't be proud of that.
I am not. Let me be clear. I am not. Anywho.
Okay, so moving on. We are almost to the end of our news. Stalker 2 has been delayed pretty majorly until December 8th. I think the original release date was going to be Q1 or Q2 of 2022. So this is a pretty sizable delay.
Substantially, yeah.
They were flying under the radar for me at first, and then they made that announcement, and now they are flying even lower under the radar for me.
I mean, I hope the game's great because I love Stalker.
I hope the game is still good now that stuff especially is not in it anymore.
And I'm glad to see this delay announcement this early, right? And not right up to release.
I really do not think that it is a hopeful sign to see a game like just get pushed back like a month over and over again. They just overestimate if you really
pull the trigger,
have to, and
be like, okay, we're going for it.
This might be too much time, but it'll be extra polished this way. And if anything, we can scoot it up a little bit.
Yeah,
it's like in general for me, when I see delays that are like that are long, I have more faith in that because it's like it seems like you're like actually understanding the time that you need rather than Cyberpunk where it's like, okay, a month here, a couple weeks here, 6 months here, whatever.
So poorly planned.
Yep.
Has anyone ever done the overestimation bit and then like moved it up by a few weeks?
It's happened once or twice. There's a couple of games that have definitely done it. I don't think it's ever been, from my knowledge, a game release. I think it's usually been like DLC or something.
Or like Infinite multiplayer where it's like partial.
I feel like I just read something about like a game's release got bumped up by a few weeks, but I can't remember anymore.
The only game I can think of that did the like 2-week delay that was fine is Endwalker for Final Fantasy, where they had like the 2-week delay for QA, but that's like the only time I can remember a release having a delay of that small and being fine at release. It doesn't happen that often though. All right, so with that, ready to go on, unless anyone else has other news they want to bring up.
Do we want to talk about Troy Baker at all?
We'll give Troy Baker his token 2 minutes of time. Because I think everyone is going to have their own opinion on this, and it could be an entire... NFT stuff is something none of us know enough about to accurately complain.
Or him.
We also have no desire to talk about it at length.
I hope I can go the rest of my life without fully understanding NFTs.
I think the main thing is Troy Baker's tweet, which, for people that haven't seen it, he tweeted a thing about like Voiceverse NFT that was encouraging small creators to like invest in their projects or something. And it was a tweet that was very tone deaf. It also came off very marketing himself to people.
Create. No, I was about to say.
Not to mention.
Go for it.
Not to mention, Voiceverse themselves has plagiarized other creators' AI voice work.
That's not so good.
Shady stuff. Super shady.
I didn't finish it, but I did. So he is on a podcast, which I do watch like semi-regularly.
He's on Play Watch Listen. We can talk about other shows and be like they're good. Play Watch Listen.
Maybe if we shout them out, shout out the podcast Play Watch Listen. I'm
pretty sure I have shouted them out before, and they had a whole. I haven't finished it, but they have a whole episode where they're just talking about it with Troy, and I think like they're all friends, right? But I think they're being very fair in like calling him out for
not letting him off the hook for the dumb tweet.
Yeah, and you said not letting him off the hook, but not being mean.
Yeah, no, I think they were being as constructive as they would need to be. And it really, to me, it's just like it just seems like nothing. Like I don't think Troy Baker's evil or anything. I just think he didn't understand.
It wasn't malicious. It was just kind of misguided.
No, and because what he was saying was like
maybe a little money hungry on the side.
I agree with that. He said it wasn't about money, which I don't
believe that for a second. I'm also not going to go into as much detail as I did in our conversation not on the podcast because
I just don't want to have that conversation over again.
Yeah, but I do feel like because the whole idea is like trying to give these sort of like AI assisted voice acting tools to like smaller creators, right? And I think he was much more interested in that itself rather than like the NFT part of it. And that part I do believe when he says that. Because
I think that the problem is just like the company he picked as an NFT company. That is their mission statement, is selling NFTs.
Yeah.
And if you want to do AI voice work and whatnot and work on having like purchasable voice packs that are modifiable and whatnot for people to actually like have bigger name voice actors at a smaller budget, maybe it's not going to sound quite as good, but it'll be passable. This is not the technology to do it with.
No,
you do not want NFTs attached to that.
I think his intentions were perfectly fine. I just think that he just put all the he just bet on a bad horse. You know what I mean?
Because I think the thing we can say is like
his chips on black.
Even if it is about money, that's not really a problem. Like, I'm not gonna.
It's not a surprise to anyone.
I'm not gonna shame
honestly,
Troy Baker for wanting to make a paycheck.
If he didn't say anything, we were probably just gonna assume that anyways, just because he pointed out that it wasn't like you're Mr. in everything, buddy. We know that it is.
Saying it's not about the money is what's wrong.
Well, he pointed out himself. He was in the Silent Hill remakes. Like, dude, like you've taken some crap projects before. Like, we get it, but like
you don't need to be. It's not something to be ashamed of or anything. It's like, everyone wants a paycheck, so don't be. If you're a creator that's like taking a bad job for money, not a bad job, like a job you don't personally like or something, don't be super concerned about it, because guess what? A lot of people have to do that. So.
And it's also clear
Nicolas
that he
Cage still has a career.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Great example. All right, moving on from the NFTs. I think before this devolves into something much worse. There was one other piece of, not news, but an update on the thing we talked about last week. We mentioned an Armored Core rumor floating around. We said maybe not so reliable. We don't know. The person that posted it had some incorrect rumors before. We have screenshots this time of the new Armored Core game. It's reliable. This is real. Maybe we don't know when this is going to see release or not, but there are existing screenshots of a new Armored Core game. Man, I'm excited if it actually comes out.
I am super pumped. I've seen some people being like, "Oh, now all these stupid idiots playing Dark Souls all the time can get a taste of what FromSoft is really like." And it's like, why don't you just do both? Like, if you fuse them somehow, that would be amazing. Like, what are you talking about? Being so pretentious like that.
I want my mech to hold his Vihander. Is that too much to ask?
But it's also like game companies change, right? Like they start doing different things, and that's okay. You know?
Yeah,
it's
I definitely.
Like, this is how they really are. It's like, shut up. Like, who cares?
If you look at FromSoft's backlog, they used to do many, many different kind of things, and now they're just doing Souls games. So I'm betting there was probably some burnout at some point. That was like, okay,
for sure, yeah,
we're gonna do Elden Ring as this giant love letter to Souls and whatnot, and get that out of the way so we can take some time to focus on other games. Maybe they'll come back to Souls. Maybe they won't. You know,
do you think we're not going to see any Souls project after Elden Ring for a while?
I think for a while.
I would say for a while, because Miyazaki himself is very notoriously not a fan of doing sequels like at all. Like after making Demon Souls, he was like, okay, that was kind of like a test. It totally worked. Great. Okay, let's kind of work the same things into a different-ish setting. And they made Dark Souls, and then he was like, okay, I kind of want to do Bloodborne now. And then everyone was like, Dark Souls 2? And he was like, here's my brother. His name's B Team. Why don't you work with him? And then you can make Dark Souls. I'm going to go make the game that I want. And then he made a masterpiece, Bloodborne. And then the guys that made Dark Souls 2 were like, please, everybody hates us. Come just one more time, please. And then he made Dark Souls 3. While very obviously at the same time also thinking about things for Sekiro. And he always is like trying to do a different project that learns from past work into a new one.
Once you find something that works and is popular, though, it's really hard to escape that because people want more of it.
Yeah, and I think the investors, or like the super high people, like way up at the top, like with FromSoft, I think are have learned that now after the not like disaster, but just like situation that people don't like Dark Souls 2 as much.
Because it wasn't a disaster. It's still pretty good. It's not as good.
After the Armored Core game comes out, whenever it comes out, fingers crossed. What do you think would be the next genre he'd tackle?
I think he's going to stick with third-person action because it is very clear he likes that.
Well, I mean, like not really third-person action. I mean, more
theme.
Theme, more story or world theme. Because you have the dark fantasy, Dark Souls, the Victorian.
He hasn't done anything like
things like that. Sekiro.
He hasn't done anything futuristic. Like I'm not saying exactly. He has.
Yeah,
with Souls though. With like a Souls type game though.
Well, I mean, he did just because I was going to say he did direct Armored Core at least four Answer. I don't know if he did 5, but he did at least direct 4. I think was his directorial debut at FromSoft.
No, I get that, but I'm saying like a Souls game. Like we're thinking about different like settings for.
I think they won't do that solely because the Surge exists and is pretty good. I think if the Surge didn't exist,
some people.
The Surge 2.
Surge 2's Surge 2. Surge 1 is not so great, but I think he's not going to do anything that is a like direct repetition on a game that exists.
It's
So I don't know. I think it's really hard to predict. I could see them doing another mech game just because mechs are underrepresented, and it's very clear that FromSoft likes them from their past backlog. I could see us getting like 2 or 3 mech type games in like a 6-year span, and then maybe going back to something more Souls-like, or bring back Lost Kingdoms.
And for all you mech fans out there, if the Dark Souls team makes a really good like Armored Core game, it's going to bring back mech games.
Oh,
it's going to be like another wave.
That's why.
Because
That's
mech
why
games
I
have-
am excited.
God, I want that. There's an Armored Core 4 Gundam that you can get.
Oh
Yes,
yeah,
a
White
model
glint,
kit, yeah.
fine scale.
it looks great.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I think mech games are actually in a fine spot. They're just not coming to the Americas. Because if you look at Japan, they get a decent amount of mech-related stuff pretty much all the time, even in the indie sphere.
I was about to ask what would an Americanized mech game be, but we have Titanfall 2.
We also have Metal Wolf Chaos XD.
And Titanfall 2.
Which is the most American game ever and not made by an American team.
It's incredible.
That's a
where the
Devolver
president
game,
has
right?
a mech, right?
Metal Wolf Chaos is FromSoft.
Oh, wait a minute.
Devolver published
So,
it.
Wasn't there a Devolver like mech?
Yeah,
game
they
a couple
re-released
years
it.
ago?
They
re-released it.
republished
Okay, okay, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah, it is still the FromSoft game under there, it's a bonkers game, absolutely insane, a lot of fun. So heavily recommend checking out Metal Wolf Chaos if you can find it on sale somewhere. All right, moving on to our actual discussion topics, we're going to talk about some games. Everyone
No way.
ready to do the thing the show's about? Great. So, with that, who has a game they want to bring up first?
I don't play video games.
Okay.
So.
Well, that's good. That means I get to go instead. So one of these last times, I think one of the shout outs was Digital Devil Saga 1 on the PS2. So now that old school obscure like fans are in the double digits, JRPG is out of my way. I can now tackle the next one on my list, which is Valkyrie Profile for the PS1. Now, copies of this PlayStation 1 game are in the realm of like $400.
The big bucks range.
God.
So because they only released I think the number is like 73,000 of them in the West, and then you add on top of that the fact that this game is so like visually dense for a PS1 game. Like the sprites and animations are like actually like beautiful, like beyond what like pixel art indie games today have sometimes. All that is so dense that in order to cram everything on the discs, the disc like write quality is like super delicate. So any like little scratch on them just breaks it completely. So yeah, just for anyone listening who goes, my favorite member of 001 talking about another one of the stupid games he plays. I'm immediately going to go to eBay and get a. Don't bother, because you will not be able to afford it.
But you know what? If you can and you do, contact Brett. Let him try him out. Let him have a little taste.
Yeah, because also it's worth pointing out I don't have a copy either because I don't have $400. But the game itself, no wonder people like this so much, because out of all the Tri-Ace related things, these are Star Ocean and Tales of games that I have played so far. This one kind of blows everything that I've played from both of those franchises so far out of the water, and it does things better than very recent releases of things in the Tales of franchise have done, and it's a PS1 game. The premise basically is you play as Valkyrie Lenneth, who is sent down from Asgard. This is a Norse mythology game, which is pretty.
I had no idea.
Pretty, I know. It's a pretty unique like subject matter for a Japanese game, I would say, to just like tackle it super uh like detailed and faithfully, because it's really crazy. But your job as Valkyrie Lenneth is to go down to Midgard and choose the mortal souls that have passed on and would make good warriors to bring back up to Asgard for the final battle at Ragnarok, the end of the world. And it's really foreboding because every time you go into a town or a dungeon, it tells you how many in-game like day cycles you will essentially waste going into this place, and you have a limited amount before Ragnarok happens, no matter what. So if you're not ready and you do things wrong, or you just like sit there and waste your time, you can just kind of screw yourself. Is what seems to be the case. Um, and every time that you come back from a place like a dungeon or a town or whatever, like big letters on the screen come up and say, "This many days till the end of the world. Have fun." It's just like,
pretty sick.
okay, cool.
That sounds like a really cool team builder type game.
It's awesome, and it's super cool too because at every you can transfer one of your party members. I think it's two at a time, but I've just been doing one so far because I don't want to lose all of my good characters. Because once you transfer them up to Asgard, they're no longer on the mortal plane anymore, so they're just gone. But every time you transfer them, you can you can check with your like she's like a like a godly accountant almost that just like comes down and is like, yeah, this is how everything's going up there. Here's the statistics. These numbers are really big. You probably don't know what they mean. Also, your two guys that you sent up, one of them, you didn't fix his cannot swim stat, so he messed up a surprise attack because he couldn't swim, so he got scared and couldn't do it. So he got some minus points there. But he's like an 18th level god right now, and his hero rank is 69. So that's pretty cool. Good job.
Nice.
Yeah.
Beat me to it.
Hey, we can both say it.
Of course.
Oh,
The more the merrier. But yeah, super like detailed stuff like that, and just again, the visuals here are stuff that it looks like it shouldn't even fit on like a PlayStation 1 disc. It's insane. If any of you guys are curious to look it up, it's incredible looking.
Is it a one disc game?
Yeah, I've looked it up. It looks great.
It's 2 discs. I don't know. Whoever did work on these like sprites and just how many like different ones there are, and the character portraits that come up, that there are like 40 million variants of for characters that you see maybe like twice. It's insane. But yeah, and the gameplay is really cool. It's like a cool mashup between the good parts of an action RPG, like a Tales of game, where you got to build up the big combo number for like. I mean, in most of the Tales of games that I've played, the combo numbers are just like a good job meter, pretty much, and then you get achievements and certain skills for like having gotten that high of a combo number once. But in this game, your attack phases are like turn based, and each of the face buttons on the controller are for a character action. So you just like you start the battle, and there's like a bunch of like big gorillas across from you, and you just mash all the face buttons like a madman, and all 4 of your characters rush at them and do like a big crazy combo.
That's
But
what I like to hear.
the number for the combo actually means something, because if you chain enough together and keep it that way, you get to do any of the characters who ran out of attacks to do in that combo can do like a super move that's like I don't even care that they're like over 30 seconds long sometimes, and they're just so awesome. And as you get weapons further in the game, more animation gets added to them. So like for example, I don't even remember what the name of the attack is because it's probably something in Viking speak. But Valkyrie's Valkyrie's it's Nibelung Valesti because she screams it at the top of her lungs.
Amazing.
she like throws a bunch of spears, and then like 3 more energy spears come up out of the ground and spear the thing, and then she flies up in the air and giant angel wings come out, and then she pulls out another spear, and then like a blue flame phoenix appears around that spear, and then she throws it into the thing, and it just straight up like Lance of Longinus is it from Evangelion. It's amazing. It's so sick. And again, it's in the middle of a battle in a PS1 game, and it looks so cool. And all the special attacks have like that amount of spectacle to them in some way, shape, or form. And it's also worth pointing out that the original cast for the PS1 version is the cast for the Pokemon anime, which is pretty cool. It's, like one of the characters is it's just Misty screaming about people being impudent over and over again, and it's not even her doing a different voice; it's just Misty.
And don't forget.
Great.
Oh, go ahead, Alex.
Would there happen to be a character who's like a beast master who has several different animals fighting for them?
No, because it's at least not yet. But I don't know what the Japanese cast is, because this is only the English voice cast. So this wouldn't have been something that they were knowledgeable of in Japan.
I was gonna say, don't forget that Valkyrie Profile is a Tri-Ace game. Also did a lot of the Star Ocean games and a handful of other lesser known JRPGs, but they're coming out with a new one soon. Finally getting a new Tri-Ace game.
I'm gonna be honest, compared to the 2 or 3 Star Ocean games that I have touched, Valkyrie Profile obliterates both of them in like every single sense of every possible statistic.
I think they're trying to do different things. From what I've played of Star Ocean 2, and from what I've heard of Valkyrie Profile, which is a fair amount, because I have a few friends who've played this game. It's on my short list of things I need to get to at some point.
Yeah.
Valkyrie Profile is a much more, like, not necessarily hardcore, but more focused on mechanics and the whole managing the what are they called, like Einhar somethings?
Einherjar, yeah.
Yeah, Einherjars, and making sure that you actually manage to, finish the game. Whereas Star Ocean is a much easier game in general, and is definitely more focused at delivering a story.
It's because that Star Ocean and Tales of Lineage is so combo focused, like I said, because of their like action kind of oriented gameplay, but it's just done so much more satisfyingly in this, where the number actually does something instead of just going up.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Anything else, Brett, on Valkyrie Profile?
All I will say is, again, I said that it was really difficult to get your hands on, but I would still recommend it absolutely, because it's really, really good so far, and I'm not even halfway through.
I feel like there's also a PSP port, isn't there?
There
vague memory of that.
I don't know what the situation is about getting that like officially, but it's got to be
Brett,
easier.
You want me to make you happy right now? You can easily acquire Valkyrie Profile on any mobile device, because it is available for $19. Square Enix.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Square Enix.
Oh, I'm sorry, $18.
I have seen Square Enix do a lot of very expensive mobile games.
All right.
Just put it on the PS4 or something, please.
I'm glad at least when Square Enix releases a mobile game, they aren't littered with microtransactions unless they're free to play.
Yeah.
It is nice to know. Because I did pick up, I think I have Final Fantasy IV on my phone, and I play it occasionally. It's quite fun. All right. Moving on. Who wants to go next?
Go for it, Alex.
Okay. So, I have a couple games I can talk about. If you guys don't want me to, I say go on about.
Pick one, and we'll cycle back around if we have time. We'll do a couple run-throughs if we, depending on time.
First one I'll talk about then, I guess, is Outer Wilds, or the little that I got to experience of it.
With your surprise.
Yes, with my subscription to Game Pass. Ooh boy, what a treat. So I got Outer Wilds because a lot of people were talking about it. And so yeah, it's a cool environmental type puzzle game. I'll tell this to you guys, but I'll say it again. I don't know what in my head made me think it was going to be a a third-person top-down puzzle game. I don't know.
No one can answer that question for you.
That is a mystery.
Is that maybe you guys would have the answer? No, nope, no one knows. But I was enjoying the first moments of the game. You know, waking up here in this nice little campfire. I thought you were human. You're not. You're this cute little alien race that is pretty well designed for the style of the game, which is nice too.
Little four-eyed friends.
Yeah, you're walking around a little like space launch campsite with a bunch of your friends and colleagues.
It's almost like campfire rocket science, which is a cool aesthetic.
Yeah, it's really cool.
There's like not dialogue trees, but you can talk to people, and there's a bunch of different lines that you can ask them and respond with. Like there's one guy there who keeps talking about like cutting down a certain tree because he really hates the tree.
Yeah.
And through the dialogue stuff, it's just like, wait a second, you're telling me the launch pad is flammable? Because
it's made of wood.
Everything there is made out of wood,
including the spaceship.
Yeah,
it's really awesome.
It's such a charming design. And there's like little not mini games, like mini activities. Like there's a tiny little RC spaceship that you can pilot.
So the fun thing about that RC spaceship specifically is Wyatt and I, when we were at MIGS in Montreal a few years ago, went to a talk from the developers of the Outer Wilds, and they said that was their way of doing a tutorial that players could ignore if they didn't want to do it, was just offer people this little RC spaceship to kind of mess with, so they know the general handling of the spaceship, because the handling for the RC ship is exactly the same as the handling for the actual ship. It was super cool.
Cool. So I'm not going to be a good spaceship pilot then, because I was doing very poorly, but I was persistent because I wanted to land it on those little geyser pads, and I got it in the little geyser thing once, and I saw it shoot up into the atmosphere, and it goes really far up.
Real quick.
It does.
So, and I was wondering, hey, you know what? I'm going to go check out what's in that geyser. I wonder if my character can swim. So I make my way down off the little hill where the launch pad is. Do a little bit of light parkour. I see it and was like, it's dim, but I think I can see something down there. Like you can see just inside the render distance, there's like this orange glow of a thermal vent.
Yeah.
That you can see underneath. And I jump down in. And almost immediately my character drowns. And I get a "you died" screen. The credits roll, and my computer crashes. I can no longer launch the game.
You had your one chance and you blew it.
I guess so.
I didn't know it was going to be those games. Instead of a game where you die when your character dies, your computer dies when the character dies.
It's the ultimate form of roguelike, where you now have to spend thousands of dollars on a new gaming PC in order to play the game again.
We say this jokingly, but
yeah, obviously. But I do legitimately, like, you need to, because this is not, for anyone who is listening to this for the first time, this is not the first time that poor Alex has played a game and gotten to like a good or cool part, and it's just become unplayable for him after that. And I legitimately do think like you got to just like put all your stuff on a drive and then like factory reset that poor.
It sounds like a broken hard drive or something. My gut reaction is that it's a broken hard drive or SSD, whatever you're putting these on.
Oh God.
Or RAM. Which the nice thing is both of those are easy fixes. You just need to figure out which one it is.
How would getting all my stuff on a separate hard drive and rebooting this baby, how would that affect my delicately modded Skyrim?
If you just clone it over, it shouldn't cause any issues.
You say that like I know what cloning is. I am not a
It's copying and pasting, Alex.
Okay.
Yes. If you keep it all together in the nice little package that it's hopefully already in, then it will probably be fine. Then if it's not, you have people that will help you that you're sitting in a chat with right now.
I'll need it. I'll need all the help I can get.
Look,
I will find a way to screw it up.
The constant pain of PC gaming is sometimes something just breaks. So, because I actually have a thing that's happened with my computer recently. that because I am now in the South for vacation and to see some family, the ambient temperature here is a lot hotter than it is in New England where I'm from. So what happens is my computer's like thermal throttling settings, which I set up, are too strict. So now I was trying to figure out why. I was playing Monster Hunter Rise. I was having so much fun. It would occasionally just drop to 20 frames for like 3 to 5 seconds and then go back up to like 100. And then like 10 minutes later do the same thing. And it was infuriating.
Yeah, for that kind of game, depending on the situation.
Because you just can't predict it. It's not bothersome enough where I was like, oh, it's unplayable. But then I was like, okay, well, let me check what's happening in other games. I played some other games that was happening in those too. And then I figured out, oh, my CPU is overheating because I'm in a different area and my thermal throttling settings are not correct for this. So
you're in a swamp biome.
I am in a swamp biome. Went and fixed it. It took a lot of time to figure out, but now that I have it figured out, I can play Monster Hunter and not at 20 FPS, which is great.
Nice.
Sometimes you just gotta bash your head into the problem until it fixes itself.
Yeah. And I will say, especially for a game like Outer Wilds, because it is just
worth it.
Straight up like one of the coolest games ever made.
100% worth
it's
it.
So sick.
You know what they say about blunt force? If it doesn't work, you're not using enough.
Yep.
Yes.
Obviously. All right, Wyatt, you want me to go, or you got something burning to talk about?
I can go. Yeah, I can
Go for it.
I've been in that kind of like mode recently where I haven't really tried a whole lot of new stuff. It's been like pretty stagnant.
Playing those comfort games, you know.
Comfort games. I'm replaying Halo Infinite on Heroic in a preparation for our talk. Still playing a bit of ESO on the side. I think one game I haven't talked a whole lot about that I've been playing off and on with some friends is I've been playing For Honor, which I've dabbled in here and there before, but I've never really gotten into it until just now.
Never done like a deep dive, you know.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those games where it is so helpful to have a couple of friends that are really good at it and are good at teaching you. Right. And that's what I have. I have like a support group of like 3 or 4 people, and we'll just play offline matches and they'll teach me little things as I'm playing, like how to not light spam constantly. But no, it's a really interesting. Would you classify it as a fighting game? Almost.
I would say
I don't know.
it is. It is definitely a fighting game. That may not be its primary genre, but if I saw a fighting game tag on that game, I would not be upset.
Yeah,
I'd say it kind of fits into like Smash Brothers. May not be like directly what you think of when you think of fighting game, but it has mechanics that are lifted directly from them. So.
Yeah, and for anyone in the call or for anyone who's watching that doesn't know, I'll just briefly. It's a multiplayer sort of melee, third-person melee combat game. Samurai versus knights versus Vikings, and the whole combat system is basically reliant on different directional attacks. So if you're using, a controller like I am, you can block or strike, up, left and right. And so if someone's attacking you with like an overhead strike, you have to block in that direction. You can also parry in that direction. And there's different characters with different types of moves, slightly different rules, different combos and stuff like that. And it's a really cool game. There's some really cool game modes, a lot that uses like kind of like AI bots or if you're familiar with MOBAs, creeps, that kind of thing. And it's such a cool game, and it's really funny too because while you're playing it, you're just like every single aspect of this game is trying to be as badass and cool as possible, and it comes off incredibly goofy, but that's what I like about it.
It's got the charm to it.
Yeah. It's like everyone has this giant strut and they're just waving their big shoulders and
they're massive swords,
crazy postures, and oh my god, it's hilarious. But it's really fun. Like if you're in a one-on-one fight, you're locked in and you are like 100% engaged because you need to be able to read your. And I guess this is just typical fighting game stuff.
Let's say why you've found a fighting game that you like.
Yeah, and it's all about like learning what kind of patterns they use and switching up your own patterns and
reading
stuff.
your opponent.
Again, typical fighting game stuff. But again, it's not really a genre that I'm into. But yeah, this one hooked me pretty quickly. It's really, really cool. And it's also, I think, one of the last Ubisoft games where they had absolutely top tier animation. Like, there was a span in Ubisoft's life where their like character animations were the best in the entire industry.
Yeah.
They had really cool, just like subtle, like changes in posture, and like every character seemed unique just by the
whoever
way
they got
that
to
like,
do their
presented
mocap,
themselves.
phenomenal.
And especially for a game like this, it's so important, and there's just so many tiny like details, and it is absolutely gorgeous. Like from an animation perspective, it's like perfect. It's amazing. Especially if you compare it to now with like Watch Dogs Legion or Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that are just like they exist and they function, but they're not particularly complex or that good looking. But yeah, no, it's a really cool game, and there's so much customization. It's one of those like the end game is fashion and literally nothing else. Like there are tacked on stats that really, in the grand scheme of things, from what I understand, don't really matter. It's more about making the coolest looking samurai, Viking, or knight that you can.
Yeah,
and
the stats are
I'm not
mostly
there
vague
yet.
guidelines.
Yeah, and I'm not there yet, but and I don't know if I'll play long enough, because it's one of those games that you really have to play for a while to become even decent at. But
and the people that have been playing it have been playing it for years, so it is kind of hard to break into
a bunch of salty dickheads.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna say that it is a bad community. Like I have some friends that are pretty respectful for the most part, and they're fun to play with. But yeah, I mean, people on the enemy team, for someone like me who's learning it, I'm using Kensei, who's like one of the most hated characters.
Oh.
But it's also one of like the easiest characters to get into. Everyone hates me on the other team. It's so funny.
Look, it's because you're playing against people that just don't understand the game, right?
Either that, or it's that factor of I'm new, and so I'm not using patterns or strategies that they're used to. And so you have that new guy factor. Yeah, they get that you have that new guy factor of you have no idea what I'm going to do because I don't know what I'm doing most of the time. And so they can't really predict what you're going to do, so they get angry.
Yeah, that's in every fighting game. There is that tier of person that plays them who just like
really funny.
It was like that.
It got so bad at one point that I was playing with, it was like a 4v4, right? I was playing with a bunch of friends, enemy team. We didn't know any of them, and one of them was like targeting me the entire match and just absolutely just like crap talking me in chat. And the other two people on his team got so fed up with him that we invited them to our Discord call, and we were ganging up on him. So it's like, oh, he's being ganged up on. We're just not going to help him. Like,
it was wonderful.
It was awesome. And then we still play games with them like to this day, and they're like super cool guys.
Cool.
It was a really, really fun experience. So yeah. I play that occasionally. I don't play it by myself because I can't. But no, it's been a lot of fun recently.
Yeah, I remember playing For Honor very fondly not right when it came out, but like a few months after was when it was really peaking in terms of they fixed all the bugs and it was a very solid online game.
Yeah. They also have some of the gnarliest like execution animations for characters that I've ever seen.
Which is funny because like they monetize a lot of them, but a lot of them are also free and are just as good, right?
The monetization, at least so far, I think this is like kind of before Ubisoft was getting like avant-garde with their like
For Honor got worse as it went on, but the nice thing was you already had that backlog of free things.
Yeah, it's been pretty okay. Like I've been unlocking stuff at a pretty decent rate so far. I haven't really felt the need to buy anything, at least so far for early game.
It's also like all cosmetic, so even worst case scenario, you can still play the game and have fun.
Yeah.
All right. I think you all know at this point the game that's going to be talked about, Monster Hunter Rise, is phenomenal. Playing it on PC, I wasn't going to pick it up on PC, and then I had a couple of friends who were like, "Hey, we're all going to get this and play some like giant hunts together." And I was like, "All right, I gotta hop in."
You gotta,
yeah. For those who don't know, they're going to be on a podcast at some point soon about Final Fantasy XIV, but our friends Tommy and Will, who I play a lot of multiplayer games with, picked that up, and they have been a blast to play with. Online, Rise is flawless on PC. That's the excellent thing, is the game runs so well. And on the Switch, playing online on Rise was easy and fine if you were playing with people that you didn't know. Like if you wanted to play with randoms. Playing with someone you knew is, as it always is on Switch because of the way friend codes and whatnot work, it's just a pain. It's not a big enough hassle to be like a major issue, but it was so refreshing that I could just open up my Steam menu and hit join game and then join the game automatically.
I'm shocked that they still use friend codes to this day, honestly.
You can friend people without it, but it's still, it's just a frustrating system that's very outdated on Nintendo.
Frustrated and outdated? Nintendo?
Never would have guessed.
No way.
Never.
Ridiculous. Yeah. And the massive frame rates that Rise gets, because like a potato could run this game pretty well. It's Switch native, and it runs well on the Switch, so seeing it at 60 plus FPS on PC is excellent. It makes a lot of the moves that were hard to pull off on Switch way easier to reliably do. So you have a lot of like moves that are very quick counter moves, especially for my favorite weapon, which is the gun lance. You know, your classic giant boomstick with a big shield that shoots cannon fire shotgun blasts at enemies. You have a counter move, but it's one of the shortest counter timings in the game. It's very, very thin timing, so you have to like nail the frames that you're getting it at. On the Switch, it was very hard to pull off unless you perfectly knew the fight. On PC, no issues. It's great. One of the best moves in the game. So yeah, absolutely wonderful on PC. For people that have not played Monster Hunter before, it is essentially like a boss rush is probably the closest thing you can get to it that isn't Monster Hunter. But Monster Hunter is, I think, its own genre. Really, at this point, it's kind of like an ARPG mixed with giant, crazy boss fights that you have to learn with that classic progression treadmill of weapons and whatnot to build out and theory craft. So, tons of fun things to do, tons of fun abilities. Rise on the PC runs absolutely flawlessly. It is a game that, like, compared to World, I like Rise a lot more just because it is so focused on giving a good time to you constantly. Like you're never having to deal with the World got a bit overcomplicated at times, where it was overcomplicating simple systems from previous games and like making things like decorations became such a pain to mess with. In Rise, it's back to, okay, I can go and like craft the decoration I want and I'm good. I don't need to mess with like tons of RNG or these crazy raids that I have to do. I know some people really like that. I think that works well for the home console games, but I am glad that Rise did not feel the need to adapt everything from World in a way that would make it worse on its own. Because I make that sound like I don't like World. I do love Monster Hunter World. It's an amazing game. But for me, Rise is the one I definitely prefer, because it is, man, Switch skills are a thing in this game. And essentially, these are your buttons you have in a JRPG to pull off a special move, right? It's your fighting game combo, your crazy move, but every weapon has a like selection of them that you can swap in and out. So much fun to use these. There's something that is coming over from Monster Hunter Generations, which had Hunter Arts as like their equivalent to this, and no other game has had them aside from the Generations games. So seeing them come back in Rise is very refreshing, especially because the Gun Lance has a move you can slot in that makes you put it behind you, pull the trigger, and launch yourself like a cannon at the enemy. And it's the most satisfying thing in any game I've ever played. I think I can confidently say it's my favorite attack that I have ever used in a game.
Because you combine that with like there's like a triple jump and like a grappling.
Once you use it, you
everything.
Can launch it 3 times in the air. If you use Blast Dash, you can launch yourself 2 more times once you're in the air. Plus, when you hit it, you slam your mace down and can pull the trigger for a giant explosion. It's excellent.
It's the mobility and the things that they allow you to do in that game, just like the ceiling of possibilities is so much higher.
There's so much verticality to it.
World,
and it's verticality that is not frustrating like World. Where World had the issue of like you'd have to get to certain areas in super roundabout ways. Here, you just use your silk bug to grapple your way to the top, and it's super easy.
And this is just coming from someone who's the only Monster Hunter game I've played is World, but I've watched a bunch of people play Rise, and it's something that I'm just like, the second that I have $60 to burn. It's
right.
going into Rise.
Anytime you get it, I will play Rise with you.
That's another thing, is that now I have such a big cool party of friends that will all be like, oh yeah, let's hunt this thing together. And I'm just like, anytime I get this, it's gonna be
and it is also major note for Rise over World is that Rise's multiplayer is very smooth compared to World. Where World you had to like do a bunch of workarounds to play the story together.
Yeah.
Rise just splits multiplayer and single player into completely separate things. There's a single player story that is relatively short, and it's basically meant as like an extended tutorial where you can fight slightly weaker versions of a lot of the monsters to get used to the game and kind of see their movesets, figure out what weapons you want to use. Then you have your actual hub quests, which are the multiplayer quests, which also can be played solo. So you never need to do multiplayer if you don't want to. But these ones are harder and are scaled and intended for multiple players. So playing them with like 2 to 4 people is the ideal. You can play them solo, but playing the multiplayer is great, and you don't have to do the thing where you need to watch cutscenes beforehand and then like sync up your timing to make sure you get to play with each other. You can just get into a lobby and play the game together. Mind-blowing stuff, I know.
Because it really was horrible in World, because like every single cutscene, any mission that had a cutscene in it, you basically had to play it on your own, get to the cutscene, and then leave.
God forbid there was a cutscene mid-mission.
I know. At that point, it's just like, well, I played the whole mission of hunting the Anjanath, which is like 15 minutes or something, depending on where it decides to spawn and go. And well, I got here, okay, now I have to do that, but again, because now I have to leave and go back home and grab my friends and then come back to the same place that I just was. It was so frustrating. So I'm glad that is
I think the best way to put it is Rise has like gotten rid of a lot of the tedium that was in World, which importantly, the tedium in World was not tedium that was in the older Monster Hunter games. Mm-hmm. The older Monster games had less quality of life features that are still in Rise, where it has a lot more quality of life, but the things that World did that made the game just kind of frustrating occasionally were like certain weapons would just have mechanics that were so overcomplicated, or so like I would use my gun lance in that game and it just didn't work super well, right? That it was just balanced very poorly in the fact that it just didn't have tools to deal with the faster monsters that they started adding. And Rise handles it a lot better because the silk binds are basically everyone has like a counter silk bind so that they can, if a monster is pulling off a move that you know is going to happen but you don't have time to get out, you can pull that and you're going to be fine. Right? There's lots of things that make sure you can. They do make the game easier on a level, but I think it's easier in a way that is a lot more accessible and doesn't take away from the game because it looks super cool.
It looks so much more fun. If you just, it's basically, I'm going to coin this term right now. I'm going to call it ninjification, because it's basically what it is. They just add a way for you to just fly through the air and do a bunch of flips and grapple all over the place in Monster Hunter.
Anytime I can fly and flip through the air, I want that game. Yeah. So let me know when you get it, because hopefully I'll be able to get it as well.
Oh yeah. Great game. I think the biggest problem it has is that some of the switch skills are like just objectively worse than the other option in so many ways to where you'll never want to use them. Which is a little unsatisfying when you like unlock a skill and you're like, oh, this is just worse than what I had in nearly every way. A good example is this one for the dual blades, where like your original skill is this cool dash forward that you can pull out into a counter if you hit something. That move's amazing. You can also replace that move with a move that just launches you into the air. That's all it does.
Good.
Nothing else.
Good.
It's not a counter. And the great thing is that weapon has another skill that launches you into the air whenever you press B. So you don't even need... There's nothing that the Tower Vault skill does that is at all better than anything else that you can do with that weapon otherwise. So there's lots of like weird little things like that where certain skills are just worse. Especially with like Gun Lance, because Blast Dash is a skill that you can opt to have or not have. If you don't have it, you just get the ability to charge your shots, and I'm just like, who would ever want to do that?
Why?
Launching yourself through the air. Yeah. Some weird balance decisions in that case, but I'm sure Sunbreak will probably, when it launches, revisit a lot of those. And important note, Sunbreak, as of right now, as the last news we have, is planned to launch simultaneously on PC and Switch. So
Nice.
Have a nice catch up, and by the summer, get the new content. Gonna be a great time. All right. Who else got another game they want to talk about?
I can go again.
Go for it, Alex.
So the second game that I've been playing for a little bit, slightly longer than Outer Wilds. Have I been calling it Outer Worlds this whole time?
No, you said Wild.
I think you said
Okay.
Wilds.
I have routinely mixed up.
You might have said
when
Outer
talking
Worlds
about
once,
the
but I
two.
think we all understood you.
I have to.
Okay.
I think everyone gets that confused.
One that I picked up a while ago that Ryan recommended, but I finally was able to get to it. I had the Somnium Files.
Oh yeah. How far did you get into it?
Not too far, just because it was already late at night when I started playing it, which was the
same
correct
situation for me.
was the correct time to start playing it, because you immediately when you go into the game, I don't know, I can say immediately, right? Because
It's the beginning of the game.
yeah. It just opens up on a creepy closed theme park, and there's a dead woman tied to a carousel with an eye gouged out.
Yes.
That feels like some very heavy symbolism that
Good
I'm
nighttime vibes.
excited to be shocked by later.
Yeah.
But it's mechanics seem fun to work with. Walking around some of the somniumscapes is a little weird, but I like interacting with objects. It's like it feels like the Ace Attorney games, but a little bit more in depth as far as the scene analysis goes.
Yeah, there's more
you
like
can actually
puzzle
walk
mechanics involved, and
Yeah.
you'll get to points where there's actual like decision making that you do that affects certain things.
Yeah. I like the, once again, not really dialogue, more dialogue wheels too. I like dialogue wheels.
A little bit more interactive, which is great.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear your opinions once you get to the mechanics related to time and whatnot. That'll be a fun talk.
Also, God, some of the characters are kooky. The guy's eye just pops out of his head and starts talking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, his eye is the AI. Get it? Because
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah. And so apparently inside the eye is just that little gel that forms its squishy little body around itself. Is that where it comes from, or is that psychokinetic energy coming from that eyeball?
I don't know, man.
I feel like it's just a gel that it moves around. Either way, it's adorable and so weird at the same time. I love it.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to get a little bit further in that game, because you are very close to the first like major set of revelations, which will be fun. Just remember, always pick the left birdcage.
I was just about to ask to make sure that because I hope you know that I have probably played this game for less time than Alex has, but for months I just keep I should play the Somnium Files again. Gotta remember, left birdcage. It's just it's been like months.
Yeah, it's
okay.
It will be a very obvious choice. It will not be obvious what the consequences of either selection will be. The left birdcage, the best way to describe why you want to pick it is it will give you, because you can do the story in basically any order, it will give you more details. Not more details, but it will hide like the major mystery a little bit longer, so that you can get more acquainted with the characters, which helps for later on.
Okay.
You have a lot more context going into the other half of the game.
Nice.
It just makes like an easier transition. Great game. Absolutely wonderful. Runs very well on the Switch too.
I love the boss's office.
Oh yeah, very good. All right. Anyone else got something else they want to bring up? Because if not,
I don't.
I'd love to talk about Halo, but I want to save as much of that as possible for our future.
So I think what I'll bring up as our last game to talk about a little bit is ESO, because Wyatt and I played a little bit more Elder Scrolls since I think the last time we've actually talked about it.
A little bit, yeah.
And me too. When's the next time I can play with you guys?
Dude,
Never.
I'm playing it occasionally, but because I'm in Louisiana and I don't have easy access to a microphone normally, it's just hard to play games with people, which is a shame.
It's hard to get reception elsewhere.
Yeah, I've gone into like a couple quests a day or something. I feel like once I start playing with you guys more again, I'll get more into it. But yeah, no, I'm still playing it a little bit. Oh, 100%. And also, Ryan and I are trying to sync up with story mission stuff.
Yeah, try to do the main quest on the reasonable together rate so we can react to revelations at the same time. The reason I wanted to bring it up,
out how to make different crafting styles for clothing.
You gotta find those. The important note is if you get the crafting styles, you may not be able to craft them without the material. You can still glamour yourself to look like them, as long as you know them. You don't actually need to craft an item to look like it.
I have
this is my favorite feature in the entire game.
I have crafting recipes that are what I hope some pretty cool looking items. They sound like it, but they're just taking up inventory space because I'm not at a high enough smithing level to learn them yet. Which is, I have a bank? Where's the bank?
Every town has a bank. Just go in there and shove your items in there.
Oh, that's fantastic. I need to go find the bank after we're done with this podcast.
But the reason I wanted to bring
so many issues
this game up, Elder Scrolls Online again, is because I've played a bit more both Elder Scrolls Online and Final Fantasy XIV, and I kind of want to talk about like the relationship between these MMOs for a second, because I think it's really interesting that they're both more story-focused games than every other MMO that's really on the market right now, aside from maybe Star Wars Old Republic, which is sci-fi, so very different audience, I think. With these two games, you get the interesting feeling of like ESO clearly wants you to play it more often. It has a ton of mechanics that encourage you to log back in every day, which I've been doing while I'm like leveling my horse up and whatnot. But I think the thing that's going to break ESO for me once I finish the storylines that I want to do, and I can see this coming like miles in advance, because it has the issue where Wyatt and I started playing the game and we would run into quests out of order, which doesn't sound like a huge problem.
About that.
But it's not really a problem with the side quests. Like the side quests are mostly fine because they tend to not rely on past knowledge, which is great. The main story, though, and the story that goes through every expansion, gets super confusing if you don't know what's happening, because we played the prequel quest to the Dragonhold DLC.
And it was awesome.
Because it was
super cool.
The important note here, that DLC's starter quest is in the starting town of your the first major town for your faction in the inn. So it's super easy to just go explore and pick it up, right? And then not have any idea it's related to DLC or anything. You do this quest, meet a couple of characters that you are not supposed to know if you do this before the main story. Or if you're doing them concurrently with the main story, it's super confusing.
Yeah. No, they're literally like a good example is Lyris Titanborn, where you can just walk into town and she's in the Fighters Guild.
I still don't know what that's about. I haven't picked that quest up.
No, I haven't either, because it's so absurdly out of order.
Because you'll see characters that you like know are somewhere else in the story that are just hanging out before you're supposed to have met them, and it's very confusing.
Well, also the weird thing is that when we were playing that prologue mission, right? Sai Sahan was there, which is like one of the 5 companions, and he talks to you like you've never met him before. So I didn't get at first
that is
someone
cool
that
thing.
I didn't supposed to know.
There is different dialogue in those quests depending on if you've done the other quests first.
That changes things,
which is good. But it makes it super confusing because the main story doesn't have different dialogue. So we've already met this character who is like an important character in the main story. We meet him in the main story, he has no idea who we are. Because we've done it in the reverse order the game intended, and it's very confusing.
And there's a lot of moments where I just want to pick up random side quests because I just want to do a bit of grinding, right? And it's like I pick up mission after mission after mission, and it's just all prologue missions, and I don't want to play them out of order. And it's really annoying.
I think that what I've learned is just don't pick up quests in the starting town. Go to like the next town, and then nothing there is going to be prologue.
I mean, you shouldn't have to do that to begin with.
It's the kind of thing that like I feel like this happened because they wanted to adhere so strictly to that idea that you can play whatever you want whenever you want. But I would
an Elder Scrolls game makes sense.
But the problem is the story's out of order. It's like you're playing different Fighters Guild quests in a different order, right? Like if I played Oblivion and then suddenly did the main storyline in like 3 different orders, it wouldn't make sense, right?
Well, and the weirdest part too is that there's so many changes that they made with, I think it's called One Tamriel, right?
Yeah.
There's so many changes that they made with that update that just feel so unnecessary. Like originally, if you Alex, if you were playing, remember you get caught and you go to Cold Harbor, right?
Yeah.
And you meet like the guy with the pot on his head and stuff like that, and he's really silly. That's supposed to be the start of the game originally.
Yeah.
Right? But instead, you go through your faction stuff first, and then you just randomly get captured out of nowhere, and then starts the original start of the game. And that order just doesn't make any sense.
And important, we only knew to start our faction stuff first because I'd played the game before and knew the starting town for our faction. Only way we knew to play that first.
Right. But that was... You didn't need to do that. I don't understand why that needed to be changed. It's like you can still start in Cold Harbor and then go to your faction area and it would still be fine.
I mean, what I really think is the solution here, because what they wanted to do was have it so if you're playing a new character or something and you don't want to do the main story, you don't have to deal with it, which is fine, right? For a game with this much content, if your player doesn't want to deal with the main story.
It's one opening mission. You can just not deal with it for the rest of, the game.
Well, what I mean is it would be perfect solution to this, just add an option in a menu when you create your character that just says, would you like to play the game in the original order or just start in the starting town, right? Don't do this whole thing at the start where you have this weird visit to the gallery and have to like pick what area you want to go to through playing like a weird tutorial. Skip that entire bit. Just give me the option to play through the original tutorial.
Which also has the worst voice actor in the entire game. At the very start, literally sounds like a digital assistant. It's so bad.
I don't want to shame the voice actress because I think she's fine. It's just the voice direction they gave her was to be like completely monotone.
I no. What I'm saying is that it's very off-putting at the start.
Yeah.
To hear the voice that we ended up getting.
It's like they're afraid of giving the player an option at character creation in case they intimidate them. Just throw up a thing that's like, we recommend you play the main story first if you haven't played this game before. Yes to start that first, or no if you just want to do the other option, right? Very simple solution that makes everyone happy. So I really wish that was what they did because it was super confusing. We didn't know how to start the main quest because you have to like find a hooded figure somewhere who will like...
It's literally the goofiest thing in the world. It's like, you gotta go talk to my benefactor and then you go talk to this person and then you just get knocked out.
Look, when I look up have to look up a guide to figure out how to play your game in order, I get a little upset. And that's the problem.
And then it's a lot. And then when you get hit in the back of the head and knocked out when you're level 15 or something.
Odd.
Wow.
It feels really clumsy.
Yeah, I think that is like the biggest issue the game has. It's so, unless you literally are reading a guide, which is what Wyatt and I have now, is a guide to play the story in order.
We literally have like a Reddit guide pinned on our task on my like.
Yeah, I have it bookmarked on my thing so I can pull it up whenever I play. And it's super helpful because it lays out the orders for everything and it tells you like what quests are technically related to each other. Because there's certain DLC that's self-contained and certain DLC that isn't, so it's very difficult to know what order to play things in. It also has pricing structure issues. So the pricing structure with ESO it's nearly the same as Guild Wars 2, which is super confusing.
You're going to have to explain this because you've explained it to me like 5 times and I still don't fully understand.
The gist of it is, the simple way to say it, if you just want to play ESO and play most of the content except maybe the newest expansion, all you need to do is have the base game and get a subscription, treat it like a subscription game, and you will have access to everything except the newest expansion. That is the simplest way to treat it. Should just be a subscription MMO if you want that.
If you don't want a subscription,
things get
really complicated.
Things get really complicated and a lot more expensive because you can buy the game and get like a collection relatively cheaply. I think it was $20 in the Steam sale, which is fine, to get the main game and all the expansions, including the newest one.
Yeah,
perfect. The confusing thing is that does not include most of the sub-story DLC that goes before it. So every
cool stuff.
Every expansion has a prologue DLC or like a year-long storyline that happens with them. And what ends up happening is if you get this pack of expansions, you get all the expansion content, which is plenty of stuff is self-contained and doesn't need this prologue story. But there will be characters introduced in these prologue stories, which is what Wyatt and I played by accident, is one of these prologue stories.
Very early on.
Very, very early on, which introduces characters that will then have a through line through to the zone that these other DLCs introduced. These are not included in that big purchase that you do, the like $20 pack of everything that we got on sale. So you have to then, if you want to get them cheapest, you can just get an expansion, get a subscription for when you're playing, and that will unlock all of them for you with no fuss, no muss, right? But it's just so confusing to look at this and be like,
So
the gist of it is, if you want to play this game, bar none, the best option is getting a subscription. If you want to play the DLC content, you can obviously just wait until you've finished with the non-DLC stuff you want to do, and then get one for when you're playing. But it is so much less expensive than just buying everything directly.
And what I ended up doing is everything was like super cheap on sales, like the holiday sale. So I got that. I got like everything plus the new expansion for like $20, and then I'm just gonna wait because the subscription price is never gonna change. So I'm just gonna wait, and if I
wait until you
really
get there,
feel
right?
like, yeah, like if it grabs me for long enough where I feel like I want that content, then I'll definitely get it. But I've never paid a subscription for a subscription service for a game before, and I really don't want to start for ESO. So I don't know.
I mean, the main thing is that it sounds worse. The subscription sounds worse. I mean, I play Final Fantasy, so I have my sub to that, right? So I know what a subscription game is like, and the nice thing is most of them, you pay the subscription, you don't have to worry about anything else, right? That's how Final Fantasy and World of Warcraft work. You don't have to worry about anything else. Enter ESO, where you have all these other options aside from the subscription, and it feels like they do such a bad job of telling you that all you need is a subscription that it's so confusing. And the nice thing is subscription will give you every month enough in-game credits to buy one of the smaller DLCs or almost buy one of them. So that way, if you do subscribe for multiple months, you can just choose to own the things that you got. So you
and
don't
you
need
own
to
them despite the fact that you don't. That if you like unsubscribe, you still own.
You still get them. You'll still get whatever pieces you actually like got with your credits that you get for subscribing, or you can just stay subscribed. So it's so confusing to describe this to someone that I think it really is detrimental to the game. They need like something that just says, hey, if you want to play everything, get the subscription, because they do not have that right now. They have like the thing that says you get all the DLC, but I think what there really needs to be is when you're looking at that pack of expansion content, they need to say, you get this or in the subscription, you are set, right? They just need to not make it so confusing.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is like, oftentimes, especially for people who aren't used to MMOs, right? If you say expansion or DLC, that often means the same thing. Whereas in ESO, they are very different things.
Yeah,
they're different sizes
so
of
for
content.
me, again, someone who isn't used to this kind of like pricing model, I was like, DLC expansion, like, what's the difference? It's all no, they're very different.
And like this is a thing we've talked about. Destiny has a problem with too. And like I think ESO might almost be worse in regard with how confusing this has been. Because there is a
sunset its content.
There's a simple solution right there, right? The simple solution is a subscription, but the game makes it so confusing that you look at it and like I don't know what to do.
Well, it's like it's so afraid to push its subscription on you that it actively makes things more confusing.
Yeah, it's just such a strange thing coming from Final Fantasy where none of that is a concern. And just being like, okay, figuring out how to play through, like if I want to play through Orsinium, right, what do I have to do? I have to either buy the like $20 Orsinium pack or subscribe. And I'm like, okay, subscribing is cheaper, so I'm going to do, right? It's just so confusing.
Wait, is Orsinium not included in the $20 pack that we had to...
No, that's what we're saying. So Orsinium is not an expansion. It's like a smaller DLC pack, right?
Again, it's the difference between DLC and expansion. It should just be the same thing.
In Destiny terms, Orsinium is the 1 year pass, right? It's the 1 year cycle.
Well, it's like, there's no such thing as a subscription in Destiny. You either buy the yearly DLC and all the seasons with it, or you buy the DLC and then the seasons separately.
We did it, boys. We brought up Destiny
again.
Which is exactly the same cost.
I know. It's just so strange that there's so many options to do these in. All of them are very confusing, and I just want you to make it easy for me to know what I should get if I want to play the game, right? That's all I want. It doesn't need to be this hard.
It's almost like it's trying to be respectful of people's times who maybe can't justify a subscription, but then they just do it in a way.
But the problem is these DLCs are placed in between the expansion packs. So if you don't get that, some of the expansions are going to make less sense, right?
So like, I just bought $20, and normally it's much more for all these expansions that I just got. Luckily, I got a huge winter.
The nice thing is most of them are fine. I think most of the expansions are self-contained to a major degree.
But again, it's like there's a bunch of stories within those areas that you just bought that there's still content that's locked off to you, even though you just bought it, which is
it isn't in those areas. So all the DLCs have their own zones. They don't lock off anything from the expansion zones.
Don't they take place in certain zones though? Because the one that we did was
Southern Elsewhere. So the Elsewhere expansion is Northern Elsewhere. Southern Elsewhere is the year-long storyline that happened afterwards. It's so confusing.
I just bought Elsewhere as an expansion.
But so the DLC we played is technically what happens after Elsewhere. So they were talking about dragons and whatnot being in the game, and they were like, oh, we can use this to fight the dragons in Elsewhere that you've supposedly dealt with or something. And I was just like, what is happening? I haven't played this content yet. I don't know what's going on. So look, I think the real solution to this, especially the in-game quest problem, add an icon to the quest that just says this is from this DLC. So I know what quests I should play in what order.
Which is what Destiny does. It's
what Destiny does. It's what Final Fantasy does. It's what every other MMO does.
I'm also going to take this one opportunity to say that you guys said something nice about Destiny.
Look, Wyatt and I will always, I think, defend Destiny's gameplay as being extremely good.
It's core gameplay loop, to be specific.
Brett might disagree, but
that's why I'm here to balance the scale.
So yeah, that's the ESO rant. I'm having a lot of fun with it. It just is. I wish the game was less frustrating to start playing, so that when I am actively playing it, I'm having more fun. Right.
The early game, like early questing for it, feels like you're stumbling across like chapters that you haven't read yet in a book. Is like the best. It's like you drop the book that you're reading and then you pick it up at a page you thought you were at, and then you realize you're much further along. I feel like is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, my journal is also just very overloaded with quests right now to the point where I'm
what I literally did, I dropped every single quest. I dropped every quest in my journal except the main one, and then just went from there. And I've had a much better time doing that.
I, for some reason, had a lot of Cyrodiil quests that I just like, okay, get these out of here.
Well, because we picked them up when we were like wandering around Cyrodiil and didn't know it was a questing zone. So we picked up a bunch of those. But all right, that's ESO talk over. Good game, just very confusing to get into.
Very good PvP if you can get it when there's a lot of players and there's a lot going on. The PvP's
awesome. The world PvP is extremely interesting and fun. It's like Guild Wars 2 and that are the only games that really have that fun, big world PvP.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on, we have shoutouts. We hit the end of the show.
Oh yeah.
We did it. We did the show. So
oh my god.
Wow. We've never done one of those before.
Oh, of course not. I'm going to give my shout out to the Dynasty Warriors and related Warriors franchises of games, because I've been playing those on my vacation here on my Switch, just playing Dynasty Warriors 8. Great game, excellent, having a lot of fun. That's it, I'm done. Who's next?
Shout out to the grunt announcer that's on all of like the propaganda towers in Halo Infinite. They're worth tracking down in the campaign just to hear him talk, because it's so hilarious, and it's the writing is just super goofy and funny. And it makes you hate him, and it makes you want to blow up every stupid tower in that entire game. It's great.
Barton? Are you still there? Are you still there?
Listen, this is the last tower. If you're taking out this tower, I'm out of the job. And you don't want that, do you?
It's terrifying that you don't need the filter on your voice to do like a person.
It's only when I'm a little bit sick can I do the voice.
All right, who's next?
My last time my shout out was for one of those gosh darn Japanese animes, and this time it's going to be another one, because I don't know, I've been going crazy. My brain is exploding. On a whim, just like all the things that I watch, I started watching a short show from the early 2000s called Boogie Pop Phantom. And I don't even know how to describe it. It is absolutely insane. It's like David Lynch made an anime.
Wonderful.
It's one of those things that came out around the same time as Serial Experiments Lain, that is just as like thought-provoking and really weird and unsettling. But Lane came out, so everyone was like, "Oh, they're all just copying this," even though they're all different studios and all different shows. So this one's gotten not nearly as much love, but I'm not done with it yet. It's very good, and I would recommend it to anyone who feels like just completely dissociating for 12 episodes and just being utterly confused and bewildered at your own existence.
Wonderful. All right. Got our final shout out?
Alex.
Oh, it's me.
You're all that's left.
Oh,
The last man standing.
That's how math works.
Last man standing.
Oh. So I won't do this because of, I guess, client person confidential. Shout out to the person who got me to start doing commissions again.
Ooh,
Oh, nice.
Oh, cool.
I need to start doing those in the first place.
Gotta use those art skills. All right, with that, we've hit the end of the show. As always, Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, on the podcast platform of your choice, YouTube and Twitch. We'll catch you next week.
Secondary shout out to those goofy as heck speeders in episode 3 of Boba Fett. Stupidest looking things. They look